You are coming to the latest information, the most notable current events on the YouTube channel of Nghe An Newspaper, the digital infrastructure of Nghe An Newspaper and radio and television. To know what the program is about today, please follow it right away. On September 8, the Cambodian news agency reported that the Cambodian Human Rights Commission, CHRC, sent a letter to Ms. Gunaret Kipsga, chairwoman of the United Nations Working Group on Arbitrary Detention. In it requested that this agency review the case of Thailand detaining 18 soldiers since the end of July and has not yet released 16 of them. Chairman of the Cambodian Human Rights Commission Kel Remy emphasized that the Cambodian soldiers were arrested just hours after the ceasefire took effect. He accused Thai authorities of not allowing these soldiers to meet with lawyers, relatives, and Cambodian officials, even though Phnom had repeatedly asked Bangkok to repatriate them. Mr. K. Remy asked the UN Working Group to declare the detention illegal, violating the ceasefire agreement between the two countries, violating the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, the Convention Against Torture and the Convention on the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearances. In the letter, the Cambodian official wrote that the UN Working Group should act urgently to ensure the soldiers' speedy repatriation. The chairman of the Cambodian Human Rights Commission stressed that incommunicado detention increases the risk of mistreatment of Cambodian soldiers, asking the United Nations to urge Thailand to comply with its international obligations and include the incident in its annual report to the Human Rights Council. The Cambodian Human Rights Commission, established in 1998, is tasked by the Cambodian government to promote human rights and the rule of law in the country. The main role of the Cambodian Human Rights Commission is to investigate and resolve human rights complaints, collect information related to human rights enforcement, organize training and disseminate information on human rights, and prepare reports to the United Nations. Cambodia and Thailand reached a ceasefire agreement on May 28 after 5 days of border fighting. A day later, the Thai army announced that it had captured 18 Cambodian soldiers and found 2 dead after clashes in the Sante area of Sisaket province. Cambodia accused Thailand of arresting the group of soldiers as they approached to greet them in a spirit of reconciliation, while Bangkok said they had surrendered. On May 1, Thailand repatriated 2 wounded Cambodian soldiers for humanitarian reasons. Thailand's 2nd Military Region said the repatriation of the remaining 16 Cambodian soldiers would be delayed due to the verification process. Cambodian officials have repeatedly urged Thailand to speed up the repatriation process in accordance with international humanitarian principles. On the afternoon of May 7, the Secretariat of the According to the Cambodian Defense Ministry spokesman, the Cambodian delegation was led by Lieutenant General Nem Boraden, head of the GBC Secretariat. Meanwhile, the Thai delegation was led by General Nutap Prail, also head of the GBC Secretariat, to attend the conference. During the conference from 7 to May 9, the two sides will also exchange documents in preparation for the 18th GBC meeting scheduled to be held on May 10 in Cambodia. According to the Inquirer, at the invitation of the King of Cambodia, Philippine President Ferdinand Romualdez Marcos Jr. began a state visit to Cambodia from 7 to May 9. The visit is in response to the official visit to the Philippines by the Cambodian Prime Minister in May 2025. On the evening of May 7, President Marcos Jr. met with the Filipino community, mostly professionals in the education and service sectors, to recognize their contributions to the economic and socio-cultural development of both the Philippines and Cambodia. On 8, the Philippine president will attend a summit with Senate President Hun Sen, bilateral talks with Prime Minister Hun Manet, and a business roundtable with key business leaders from both countries. Earlier, at a palace press conference on September 5, Foreign Affairs spokesperson Angelica Ascalona said the Philippines and Cambodia will sign agreements on combating transnational crime, higher education, and air services during Marcos Jr.'s state visit. Marcos Jr. will also seek Cambodia's support for the Philippines' chairmanship of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN, in 2026. According to the Inquirer, the last state visit by a Philippine president to Cambodia was in 2016. On September 7, Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba unexpectedly announced his resignation just a day before the ruling Liberal Democratic Party, LDP, was to decide whether to hold a new party leadership election. The move comes after Prime Minister Ishiba held talks on the evening of June 6 with former Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga and Agriculture Minister Shinzo Koizumi. Both are close to Ishiba. They are said to have urged Ishiba to avoid causing a split in the LDP. This comes amid growing calls within the ruling party for a new leadership election. Since taking office last year, the 68-year-old Ishiba has seen electoral setbacks that have cost his coalition its majority in both the first and second houses of parliament. The worst defeat came in an October election that left the coalition with a minority in the lower house, the more powerful chamber. The setbacks stemmed from former Prime Minister Ishiba's concerns about rising living costs, which have made it harder for Ishiba's government to achieve its policy goals. The leader faced calls to take responsibility for the Liberal Democratic Party's defeat in the upper house election on September 20, but Prime Minister Ishiba remained committed to staying in office. Speaking at a plenary meeting of party lawmakers in both houses of parliament earlier, Ishiba said he was responsible for guiding policy issues such as measures to combat rising prices and responses to U.S. tariffs. "I will make the right decision when the time is right, but there are growing calls within the LDP to hold a new president election, especially for the top advisor Taro Allo," he stressed. In addition, there are some members of the Ishiba Prime Minister's team who support the election of a new president, including Justice Minister Kizuki Suzuki. As of June 6, 18 of the 47 provincial party branches nationwide have decided to call for an election. Potential successors to Mr. Ishiba. Currently, there are Agriculture Minister Koizumi Zinziro and Ms. Sanai Takaichi, Mr. Ishiba's direct competitor in the 2024 party presidential election. In connection with the incident at the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, ICE, raided and arrested more than 300 Korean workers. On July 7, in a deeply emotional social media post, U.S. President Donald Trump warned foreign companies must respect U.S. immigration laws. Mr. Trump said after the immigration enforcement operation at Hyundai's battery plant in Jorge State, "I call on all foreign companies investing in the United States to respect our immigration laws." According to the head of the White House, Washington welcomes foreign companies to invest in the United States and encourages them to legally bring in talented, skilled workers to create world-class products. Mr. Trump added, "We will make it quick and legal for you to do that. In return, we ask that you hire and train American workers." Since returning to the White House, President Trump has stepped up efforts to crack down on and deport illegal immigrants in the United States. The Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency ICE has become the main force responsible for this task. Earlier, on April 4, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency and related U.S. agencies raided the Hyundai and LG battery factory in Jogja State, arresting 457 illegal workers, including more than 300 Korean citizens. Before posting the above article, Mr. Trump told the media that he would look into what happened but that the incident would not damage his relationship with South Korea. He also raised the idea of considering the possibility of facilitating some foreign manufacturing experts to come to the U.S. to help train American workers. Also on 7th, the South Korean presidential office was further isolated. It announced that the country had reached an agreement with the United States to release South Korean citizens arrested in the raid. These workers could board flights home on 10th. South Korea, Asia's fourth-largest economy, is a major producer of automobiles and electronics and has many factories in the United States. South Korean companies have invested billions of dollars to build factories in the United States to gain market access and avoid tariff threats from the Trump administration. In July, South Korea pledged to invest $350 billion in the United States. On 7th, Universal World reported that U.S. authorities were investigating a fake email purportedly from a U.S. Republican lawmaker that contained malware that appeared to help China gather information about trade negotiations between Washington and Beijing. The malware was contained in an email apparently sent by Republican Congressman John Molina in July to trade groups, law firms, and government agencies, according to FON. The Chinese hackers impersonated the top U.S. congressman, writer said. U.S. cybersecurity investigators traced the source and linked it to APT-41, a hacking group believed to be working for Chinese intelligence. A source from the FBI told the Post that the two agencies were aware of the email and were working with partners to identify and pursue those responsible. Mulina, who chairs a congressional committee focused on U.S. strategic competition, called the attack another example of Chinese cyber activity aimed at stealing U.S. strategy. He said, "We will not be intimidated." Meanwhile, the Chinese embassy in Washington said it was not aware of the details of the incident, and said that all countries face unpredictable cyber attacks. Writer, a statement from the Chinese Foreign Ministry, said China firmly opposes and fights against all forms of cyber attacks and cybercrime. "We also firmly oppose smearing others without solid evidence." In another development, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Scotson told CNBC on May 7 that he was confident that President Donald Trump's tariff policy would prevail in the Supreme Court. Mr. Ben added that if the tariffs were overturned, the U.S. would have to repay about half of the money. This would be very bad for the U.S. Treasury. Minister Ben said that if the court postponed the ruling until June 2026, the U.S. would likely collect between $750 billion and $1 trillion in tariffs. And if the tariffs were overturned, significant disruptions could occur. The prospect of the U.S. government having to issue tax refunds on such a large scale could be good news for businesses and organizations that have paid their taxes. Mr. Ben's statement came as an appeals court ruled in late August that most of the Trump administration's tariffs were illegal, including reciprocal tariffs announced in early April.